Have you ever thought about the moments when a patient slips into unconsciousness on the operating table? Anesthesiology isn't just about medicine, it's about escorting someone through the thin veil between life and sleep. But what if that plane doesn't stay closed? What if something more traumatic stalks the hallways, lurking between consciousness and oblivion? These 5 stories come from first-hand experiences, real accounts from anesthesiologists whose shifts blur with the paranormal. They witnessed shadows behind the drapes, heard whispers when no one else was around, and saw faces that shouldn't be there. These are their stories, and once you read them, you'll never look at surgery the same way again. Story 1. She woke screaming in the PACU. I thought it was just another evening shift, a routine appendectomy. The patient, Miss Anders, was young, athletic, and anxious about the procedure. After intubation, I kept the sedation steady, monitors quiet, vitals perfect. But when the surgeon counted down, I felt it. Something cold pass over the drape. Post-op, I watched her awake in the PACU, eyes fluttering as consciousness crept back. For a moment, she looked peaceful. And then, she buckled, screamed, blood spat from her mouth. It was like she saw something in the corner of the room, something horrifying. "Don't let her in," she gasped. "She's watching us!" Her vitals crashed. We called a code blue. I increased sedation, but she wouldn't calm down. Eventually, with 4 of us holding her down, she fell limp. Eyes closed, her breath raspy but alive. The team later called it a complication, aspiration pneumonia, but nobody tried to explain the blood splatter across the ceiling or how she pointed at an empty corner and pleaded with her eyes. That night, when I stepped outside, streetlights flickered off in sequence. The air around the PACU door felt wrong, like something waiting just inside. Story 2, The Midnight Whisper in OR 3. I was called into OR 3 for a complicated spinal fusion at 2 a.m. As the anesthetic took hold, I stood just outside the drapes listening to the steady hum of machines. Then I heard it, a soft whisper from the far corner of the room. "You're next." I froze. No one else was in the room. I dismissed it as fatigue, but the whisper moved closer, more insistent. My stethoscope picked up a faint heartbeat, but the patient on the table was ventilating for me, not breathing himself. I pulled aside the drape, empty space. When I stepped back, the equipment's digital display read 00 so close for a moment before snapping back. Post-operative checklist carried on as if nothing happened, but every time I enter OR 3 at night, my skin crawls with the memory of that whisper, and I'm not alone in hearing it. Story 3. Flatline on a full monitor. It was a routine hysterectomy. Patient stable, no complications expected. But as I reduced the anesthesia dose, the EKG monitor flatlined. Heart stopped. No pulse. The surgeon halted mid-incision. As we launched into resuscitation, I glanced down at the monitor again. Pulses returned, but the readout showed multiple heartbeats occurring simultaneously, 6 different rhythms overlapping. The attending heard it too. We exchanged terrified glances. Eventually, everything normalized. Patient recovered. But after that night, no monitor on that brand would work for me. They'd flatline the moment I walked in, even if the patient was awake and talking. It's like something warns me before the heart stops, but only when the patient isn't really there. Story 4. The reflection in the intubation mirror. The intubation mirror is a small reflective tool we use to guide tube placement. During one night, I paused to check the reflection and glanced at a nurse adjusting tubing. Or so I thought. She wasn't there. The reflection showed a woman behind me. Dark eyes, matted hair, pursed lips. I whirled, but the room was empty. When I looked back down, the tube in my hand had bent, a perfect 90-degree angle, when it was straight earlier. I replaced the mirror, shaky, and finished the intubation. We went home. When I watched the OR footage later, the reflection moved on its own behind me. Not the nurse. Someone else. Something else. The next day, the mirror shattered in my locker. Shards pointed outward, like the thing in the reflection broke free. Story 5. Never alone in the PACU. The PACU, post-anesthesia care unit, is where patients awaken from the grip of anesthesia. It's supposed to be a place of safety, of recovery. But for me, even after countless shifts, I never felt entirely safe. Perhaps it was the hush that swallowed the room at night, or the steady beeping of monitors that felt more like heartbeats of something alive, waiting. I found myself staying longer than needed, hovering by bed 8, watching charts, checking vitals, a habit born of curiosity, perhaps guilt. I can't say why I felt compelled, but one night that impulse led me to an encounter I'll never forget. It was around 4 a.m. on a cold autumn night. The hall lights were dimmed, the only illumination coming from the glow of monitors and the occasional flashing of the emergency cart lights. I entered the PACU after a quick walk to clear my mind and paused. Bed 8 was empty. Manufacturing blank spaces in the darkness can play tricks on your eyes, but I've been here too long to be fooled. The monitor was still beeping in a steady rhythm, a pulse without a patient. That alone shouldn't have surprised me. It could be a tech delay, but then I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. Something small, scuttling along the ceiling vent, just above the lamp that hovered over each bed. Tiny feet, human feet. They paused. I froze. My chest tightened, and I swallowed hard, my throat desert dry. I grabbed a nearby stool, dragging it under the vent. The light from my phone app traced the vents but found nothing. Dark grids, dust-laden slats, but no child. Yet the monitor flatlined with a mechanical gasp. "Not again," I whispered, my voice soft and raw. Twice before, in other wings, I'd heard unexpected flatlines on empty beds just before patients gasped awake, as if chased by something they couldn't see. The monitor's beep resumed. Normal rhythm, but I felt something watching me, not above but behind. I turned slowly, scanned empty beds, empty chairs, but across from me, the rhythm of another monitor beat out of sync. Soft, faint. I rushed toward it, calves burning, stethoscope in hand. The monitor belonged to bed 9. I rounded the corner and there it was. A tiny set of shoulders hunched under the light. The form of a child bent, crawling toward me on the floor. Pale, with ragged clothes and a head too big for its body. I yanked back. Real. When I stepped forward again, it was gone. I backed out into the hallway, locked the PACU door behind me, and sat on the floor panting. 2 senior nurses found me there, pale and widening with fear. "How long have you been here?" one whispered. "Just a minute," I lied, fingers shaking. They hadn't seen anything. Just the empty room, the monitor notifications, but no footprints or signs of a visitor. I glanced back at the PACU window. Everything inside looked normal, empty beds and softly beeping machines. Politely, I declined shift coverage the next day. But cottage rumors swirl in hospitals, and I wanted answers. I spoke with housekeeping that evening. They don't talk much. They're used to messes you don't want to think about. But bed 8 had a story. A year ago, a homeless child sneaked in, freezing, slipped into bed 8, and never woke up. When morning came, the child was limp, cold, eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Cause of death was exposure, no family, no records. The body was quietly removed before dawn. No mention made in the shift notes. They'd cleansed the room thoroughly, disinfected everything, replaced sheets, no trace left. But a stain on the floor tile, they said it returned every night. I left that evening haunted. I couldn't leave it alone. That night I woke at 3 a.m. same time. I heard footsteps on the vent above my bed, tiny echoes. The monitor in my apartment, even though I don't belong to a PCU of course, detection software beeped on my phone for movement. Blood chilled, I opened the live feed to find nothing. But my heart raced with the same rhythm, a steady, pulsing beep, beep, beep. That sounded far too real. I checked the logs. Nothing. Every night since, when midnight nears, I retreat to calm rituals. Hot tea, a book, something to ground me. But at 4 a.m. I sit up fast. I don't always see it, but I feel the room grow cold. My skin crawls as if covered in unseen breath, and I feel the tap-tap of tiny feet on the vents. Part of me wishes to ignore it, drift back to sleep. But every time I mutter, "Not tonight." The PACU remains the same, sterile, bright during the day, somber at night. But I can never be alone there again. Sometimes in the mirror before I leave my house, I glimpse a pale face reflected behind me. No eyes, just faint outlines. And I feel a soft, small hand resting on my shoulder. Some say I'm paranoid now. Some say hospital ghosts follow the living. I don't know, but whenever I walk past bed 8, still in service, I whisper a silent apology for being the only witness left to her chilling, endless watch. The job of an anesthesiologist is to guide patients through the darkest transition of their lives. Some nights it feels like they guide us into something darker. So next time someone drifts into sleep under your care, ask yourself, are we ever truly alone in the shadows of the hospital?